Hey, hello, and welcome to Text Potential. I'm Paul Soule, your host and CEO of the Florida High Tech Corridor, which is 23 fabulous counties with superstars, and we're going to see another one today. We give you that chance to be able to kind of experience the magic that goes on in the corridor and the life-changing things that our entrepreneurs are doing, and those that support the region. Welcome to a new year. So hopefully everybody had a happy new year, and this is kind of the kickoff. And really part of this kickoff is highlighting Dawn Haynes, who has become a fast friend over the last couple of months, an entrepreneur herself, and CEO of the StarterStudio, Orlando's nonprofit startup accelerator for aspiring tech entrepreneurs. She has, and I'm going to read this because I don't want to mess it up. She has over 35 years of international leadership experience in strategic management focused on innovation and entrepreneurialism, business asset growth, and business model development. And you believe me with this one because we have had some fantastic conversations over cups of coffee. And I think my first question at the time when we talked on was like, why are you doing what you're doing now? So Dawn, welcome. Thank you very much for your time here. For our audience, for our viewers and our listeners, that little bio that I gave doesn't do you any good. I want to hear a little bit about your story, your background, and then truly what got you here as CEO of StarterStudio.
Yes, well, hello everybody, and thank you, Paul, for the invitation. This is an honor and a privilege to be here. You know that my career has spanned pretty much 4 decades, so that dates me, right? But I've had the privilege of working globally for a lot of really well-known brands and household names, as well as having had my own consulting company where I worked a lot with startup organizations through a lot of different industry verticals. So, when I started looking at my career and realized that I'd done an awful lot of different things over the years, you always wonder, right, why you do the myriad of things that we do. And it's all come together for this particular role that I have here at StarterStudio, because now I understand where all of those seemingly different threads have come together to create a really rich tapestry for what I can offer to startup entrepreneurs by joining a pretty illustrious team of people that have got just as much experience in different ways that I have, to really be able to help founders start their journey and do it in a way that brings the experiences and the expertise and the skill sets that as a team we bring to help founders address all of the things that we've come to understand are best practice disciplines to set a founder up for the greatest success possible when they are starting a new venture.
Now, as you talk about StarterStudio, and I love the name, and I've learned some about it over the last 2 years that I've been in this role. Give our listeners and our viewers a few more specifics on what you do and the impact you make in that ecosystem we call, entrepreneurship with founders. What specifically are your pillars?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and we've talked about this previously. That when you think about the entrepreneurial journey, I like to liken it to a relay race, because the entrepreneurial journey really has 4 phases to it. So you have that really early startup phase where, if you think about it as a relay, it's when the runner is trying to get out of the starting blocks and do that first leg as expediently and expertly as possible. And really, that's our part of that entrepreneurial journey. And then as you go into the second, third, and fourth phases of that journey, you're going into the early stages of growth. And then you're going into that really, heavy growth and scaling of a business. And really, the final leg of the relay for a lot of, especially tech entrepreneurs, is their exit and their exit strategy, and whether that is acquisition or some other culminating event that happens. So, the pillars of what it is that we do at StarterStudio for that startup phase are the best practice disciplines that help a founder go through validating their idea. And really, it's validating that there's a problem that is being solved, and whether or not the solution is a solution that people are going to be willing to pay for. And then we take the entrepreneur through the building of a business. So, how do you create a business that becomes sustainable? So, what are the things that you need to be thinking about there? And depending on the type of technology that an entrepreneur has, that could be looking at identifying your first customer. It's generating that early revenue. It may be developing your first minimum viable product, having a go-to-market strategy, and generally just being able to get yourself off the ground. And then we also take the entrepreneur into what we call the pre-seed stage of their business. So that's for businesses that have the ability to be scalable and investable. What are all of the things that we need to do to help a company be ready to go in front of investors? So whether that is angel investors, whether or not it's VC, it may even be crowdfunding. But what are the things that they need to do to be able to speak the language that is important to the investor? So how do you show that you've got product market fit? How do you show that you've done a risk assessment of your business? Because as we know, investors want to lower the risk as much as possible. So if we can work with an entrepreneur to do a risk assessment of their business and then create a risk mitigation plan for an investor, it's really great for them to know that their founder or their founding team understand their business well enough to be able to identify the risks and know what to do with it. So that's really the culmination of our program, helping the entrepreneurs do their due diligence, actually create the data room for all of the documents and information that an investor or an investor group would want to know, and being able to help our founders create a pitch deck or multiple pitch decks that they can actually use to speak to investors that may be interested in their business.
One of the things that I've learned from you over this last year is, one of my aha moments was, wow, StarterStudio is actually beyond Orlando right now. You're connecting and offering services to like Embry-Riddle, to Groundswell, to UF, which I think is amazingly important. And you're doing it in such a way that you're not duplicative. You're not trying to pile on to yet another program. It's interesting to me to think about what must be going on in an entrepreneur's mind, or even let's take it earlier than that. Somebody with an idea. Is StarterStudio good? How would they connect with you, for question number one? And then are there things where, and I think of it as a relay race, are there things in our ecosystem where you might tell that person, you know what, StarterStudio is not a good spot. Here's where you need to go next. Is there this ecosystem handoff that occurs that you've noticed in the 9 months you've been here?
That's a really great question. And, I think that you and I both have a similar mission, which is to really identify the full depth and breadth of the ecosystem that we've got, the players that are working within our ecosystem to truly assist an entrepreneur on their journey. So, the answer is yes, because entrepreneurs come out of different places within our community. So, if you've got somebody that is coming out of a research and academic institution, there is a really good chance that they are looking at commercializing relatively deep technology that has a very different, at least a different start to their journey than somebody that may come out of the community because they are involved in business, they're involved in industry, and they see a problem that needs to be solved and can be solved by technology. So I think that there is, ultimately, there is a different starting point depending on the type of entrepreneur that you are and the type of technology that you are looking to commercialize. So, for people who are coming out of an academic and research institution, that idea stage is really covered by the I-Corps program, right? That is offered by NSF through academic institutions. So for coming out of the I-Corps program, there's always a question of what's next, right? What do we do after we've validated that problem? So we've built our build stage and our seed stage programs to be the continuation of that journey for entrepreneurs that come out of research and academic based institutions. For those people, for the entrepreneurs that are coming out of business and industry within our community, our idea stage is actually it's I-Corps Plus for people that don't have the basis of the academic and research piece of that, but that's their piece of the journey. And yes, we do work with those academic institutions that you mentioned, and other outpost and community partners to be able to offer our programs to them for people that they work with. So whether that is, an incubator in that is being operated by a community, by government in that community, or whether or not it is an academic institution, we can create part of that entrepreneurial journey in conjunction with the teams and the organizations that they have there. If we are that beginning part of the journey, then our job is also to connect the entrepreneur into what comes after us. So whether or not that is an incubator program that we know deals with the next stage of the journey, or whether or not it is a program that follows on from us, our role is to understand the ecosystem as well as humanly possible, with the way that it grows on an almost daily basis, to be able to ensure that we're doing the very best that we can for the entrepreneur and connecting them to the resources. So whether or not that's the Senfluence program, whether or not it's the UCF incubation program, whether it's connecting them into the Rally accelerator program, which is specifically designed for social entrepreneurship, whether it's going into venture scale up, which is the next stage. It may even be referring them over to Tampa Bay Wave. The way that we look at it, we're all partners, right? There is no one solution. There is no one prescribed journey, because every entrepreneur is different. Every idea that they come up with is different. And therefore, the resources and the support and the mentoring that they need is going to be different. And our role is to be able to help create that customized, individualized journey.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you highlighted, like Linda and Tampa Bay Wave and what they're doing. And in my mind, it means, and I think you and I are on a similar journey, understanding what's out there, to honor the entrepreneur, to show her that, hey, there's a support structure here, and you're not going to hit a wall and then wonder what's next. Why do I hear crickets? And it's our job, as for those that are listening that are leaders in this organization, in these organizations, in these sets of ecosystems, to make sure we help them do that. Not do things for them, but really with them on that journey and kind of marry up on the journey. Speaking of journey of an entrepreneur, let me ask you this question: if you wanted to start a business today, or let's say you've got an idea and you've been doing this for decades now, what are some of the current things that would be going through your mind? Things to consider, probably things that you talk to new businesses, new idea makers out there, new creatives out there who maybe, have just dialed into this podcast and said, who are these people that have an idea? What are some of the things that you could share with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that as I look back, and as we try to make things as simple as possible, right? So that the entry for an entrepreneur is as seamless as possible. I think it's the understanding, what I would impart to a would-be aspiring entrepreneur is understanding the difference between validating a problem and validating your solution, and ensuring that those things are done in the right order. Because we talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who come to us and say, we have an idea. And when we ask them to provide us with a problem statement, they either look a little bit like deers in the headlight, deer in the headlights, or they start telling us about the solution to what it is that they want to do. So, what I would encourage everybody to understand is that you need to be able to really clearly and succinctly describe the problem that you are solving, and that all of the customer discovery conversations that you've had have been about asking people what they do, how they do it, what are the hurdles that they experience in doing that job, so that you begin to really understand the problem or the need that you're solving. And then, and only then, can you go back and start having a conversation about the solution that you may have devised. But if you do it the wrong way round, then you end up having a solution which may be a product or a service, and you're looking for a problem. And that never leads to the greatest generation of revenue for a business, I'm afraid. So I think that, if I was going to give anybody, a single nugget of advice, it would be just make sure that you don't shortcut that particular piece of the journey. Because, I can give examples. I mean, I can think of a number of different examples of businesses that have come to us thinking that they are quite a ways down the journey, only to find out that they've actually not spent the time at all really fully understanding and discovering the problem that they think that they're solving, and that they've not had any of those conversations. Because the truth of the matter is that if you're an entrepreneur and you're going out talking to people that you know or that have been introduced to you, and you start talking about the solution, the idea that you've got, people are inherently nice and they want to be supportive of somebody that's got an idea. So they're going to tell you that they think that your idea is great. The reality, though, the rubber hits the road when you're trying to then sell your solution to somebody, and it's actually not solving a problem or a need that they have, at least not sufficiently for them to be willing to pay for it. And then that's when you come unstuck.
I remember there was a presentation up at the hub up at UF up in Gainesville. Carl LePan and that group of Innovate, UF Innovate, and just a tremendous group, part of the corridor. And a question was posed to this young entrepreneur, and not he was young, his company was, and it had been around a few years. They had 100 employees. They were doing some amazing things. And somebody had asked him, if you look back on your own journey, what would you have changed? And you could tell he knew the answer. He said, I would have called my baby ugly sooner. His idea, his original idea, he said, I hung on to that thing because I said, gosh, the world just doesn't see the magic of this solution. And then he realized after, just beating his head against the wall and getting, I think, some good mentors to say, you got to pivot. And the faster you can do it. So it relates completely to what you describe.
What?
Hey, you've been there for, oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
Sorry, Paul. The thing is that when you start actually understanding the problem, it doesn't mean that your idea was wrong. It just may help you understand how to tweak. It may not even be a full pivot. It may be a tweaking of your solution that means that it's actually going to truly address a problem in a way that you may not have fully understood unless you've gone to extraordinary lengths to have deep and meaningful conversations with people that are experiencing, are doing the job that you want to help or are experiencing the problem. But it may indeed result in a full pivot that actually says, gosh, actually there's a problem here that I wasn't even aware of, that I could actually solve better because I understand how to solve it. And actually that's what's going to drive my business and make it successful.
Yeah, no, that's great. Hey, you bring an interesting view, Dawn, because you've been on the international scene. So I'm curious about your own thoughts of the Florida ecosystem, if you will, and give our viewers a chance to get your perspective. You've been here before, but now you're in this role of really helping entrepreneurs and kind of not only the goods, but maybe the others, the things that there might be a piece missing here, but your sense for the overall environment here in the case of entrepreneurship and innovation.
That I love that question because it actually allows me sort of to go back about 15 years, which is when I tried to start my own tech business, coming out of the MBA program at Crummer, and realizing that the ecosystem that has been built over that last 15 years here in Orlando is amazing. I think that we've got a tremendous depth and breadth to our ecosystem with all of the right players. And I think that if we can connect to each other in a more meaningful way that makes it a seamless connection for the entrepreneurs that we're trying to help, we will have we'll have a foundation and a basis and an environment for entrepreneurs that I have not yet seen anywhere else, in my international experience, and even domestically. Um, and I think that's really exciting, and it's one of the reasons that I was drawn to this role at Starter Studio, because I know firsthand what it's like if you don't have all of those support services, people connected, the ability to be able to. I mean, there were no accelerator programs when I came out of the MBA program. And I truly believe that if our ecosystem that is in place today, even though it is not yet as fully connected, and collaborative as I can see that we've got the potential to work towards, but even if we'd have just had the players here 15 years ago, I truly believe that I would have been hugely successful in what it was that I wanted to do. And it really is, it's one of the driving factors that made me say yes to being the CEO of Starter Studio.
I'd like to have you share with our listeners and our viewers any examples that you've seen in your short time there, sort of a success story or two. Because in my mind, when that entrepreneur sort of has the aha moment, that eyes light up, hey, I learned this. So any quick examples that we can kind of sink our teeth into that you've had with Starter Studio, or your connections that you could share with our viewership?
Oh, sure. We don't have enough time for me to highlight all of our success stories, and they're not. You know what? And that's the wrong terminology. The success stories of our founders that we've just been a little part of, right? But I think that most people who are here in Central Florida will have heard the name of Stax. They started off as Fat Merchant when they were going through the Starter Studio program. But they've now got unicorn status, so that's pretty amazing. But I think what I'd like to highlight about that particular journey is that Sunira, who is the founder, and her co-founder Jacques were actually at Starter Studio at the same time, but Jacques had his own startup that he was working on. But he was so excited by and fascinated by what it was that Sunira wanted to do that he actually stopped his own journey and decided to hitch his wagon and become her co-founder. So that's one of those, serendipitous moments that occur when you're part of a cohort and a program. So that's one of the examples. Then, Brian, who's the founder of Home Lending Pal, he talked to my predecessor, Lillian, about his idea for Home Lending Pal when he was living down in Miami. And based on the conversation that he had with Lillian and what it is that we do at Starter Studio, he decided to come up, and actually he slept on the sofa at one of his relatives' houses here to be able to come up and join the program, and went through the Starter Studio program, and is now raising his next future rounds of capital. He's got IBM helping him and working with him. He's got Wells Fargo and some of the other banks. And, again, that all started from having, to your point, one of those inspirational conversations where we were able to turn around and say, look, come here. You can start with us, but we're just the start, and we can actually get you connected into other places. We've got an organization at the moment that is going through their seed round funding. They went through our program probably 4 or 5 years ago. called Baccarat. They're in the travel industry, and and they've been hugely successful and have been unbelievably resilient because they started their business prior to the pandemic. And as you can imagine, when you're doing something that is travel related and all of a sudden travel stops for 2 years, but we're so excited for them that they were resilient. It gave them the opportunity to really take a look at what they were doing, and were they doing it and approaching it the right way, and to the point of being able to pivot some of the things that they were doing. But super excited for them. So they're just three that spring to mind. And then in our most recent seed stage cohort, we have a professor from Embry-Riddle who has started a business based on some deep technology all around 3D printing, the design and simulation piece of 3D printing. And he pitched at the Florida Venture Forum Early Stage Capital Conference last week and was the first runner-up in that particular event. So he's going to go on and do amazing things. And you wonder sometimes whether or not we have anything that we can offer to a PhD professor at a significant academic and research institution. But he said that the programs that he's gone through, he went through 2 programs with us, have been unbelievably helpful, and we were able to connect him to investors and other opportunities. And so we're just at the start of his journey, but I think that there are going to be some amazing things to come for Novenir as well.
Yeah, and that's exciting, and it can be. I know I get intimidated when you're talking to PhDs with a particular technology, and you're going, "Wow, how do you even keep all that in your head?" And then you realize that there's a whole, again, sort of rainforest of help out there. What haven't I asked you that you would like to share with our, what I hope to be a growing wide variety of people in the audience that you would like to share with them?
I think that I think one of the things that people may not at first realize or have thought about is that because we're a non-profit accelerator, our entire focus and our mission is actually centered on the entrepreneur. We know that for a lot of tech businesses, they're really important to our community's economy because they drive the creation of high-paying jobs, which speaks to this whole idea of broad-based prosperity for our community. But we also provide a way for a lot of different people in a lot of different sectors to be able to be part of that economic engine. Because what we don't want to do is to burden entrepreneurs with really the true cost of being able to go through these programs. And so we look to subsidize those programs, and we look to subsidize those programs with people who want to, come in and be sponsors and be part of this amazing journey that we are all on together. So I would just encourage anybody that, is interested in entrepreneurship, is fascinated by what we do and how we do it, to just get in touch with us and find out, how can they get involved and how can they support these amazingly creative, innovative, and sometimes revolutionaries in the ideas that they have. So we'd be delighted to hear from anybody.
That's Dawn. That is, I can't even follow that as far as a follow-on best thing to say. I love what you just said, because we're here for the entrepreneur, which is exciting. So with that, thank you, Dawn. I love talking to you face to face. I love capturing what's in your mind for our community and our region. It's exciting to be a part of this. So thanks for taking the time.